Hello, welcome back to my car cave. Today I've got another new 1/18 scale F1 car from GP Replicas. This time it's the 1989 Ferrari 640 F1 driven by Nigel Mansell to the Brazilian Grand Prix. As you can see here, it's a standard GP Replicas version. Comes with the acrylic case or a cover, which is great for displaying. This is the driver version. There's a non-driver version as well. Let's go ahead and take the cover off and we'll do a look-see at the car and we'll compare it to the late season version of this model. Okay, now that we've taken the cover off, let's talk about this model. As a weird side note, I thought I would mention that when I opened this, the cloth cover that usually wraps these cars was just laying on top of the case. It's like the second or third time this has happened on a GP replica, and I'm just curious if anyone else is having the same experiences. Not sure what's going on at the factory, but thought I'd just felt compelled to mention it. Anyways, back to the car, which is what we're really here to talk about. This is the 1989 640. However, this one I believe is more commonly referred to as the 639. The 640 is actually the later season that came in around the fourth GP of the year, I believe, and that one features the air intake that sits above the driver, the more common shaped one when you look at pictures or think of the 640. So this is I'm going to call this the 639. This is a Brazilian Grand Prix version. It's the early season. This is a car designed by John Bernard, who was famous for creating the first carbon fiber monocoque while he was at McLaren. Came over to Ferrari, and the first thing he did was he created the semi-automatic gearbox that by the late or mid 90s was the standard in F1. However, that design or that technology leap was a big problem for this car. Unfortunately, this car was kind of win or DNF, and Nigel Mansell did win the first race in Brazil. Uh, he would not win again until Hungary, which is eighth, ninth, 10th race of the year, something like that. Poor Gerhard Berger, I think, retired in his first 10 outings. He retired in something like 13 of or 12 of 15 races overall. He did get a win. When he finished, he either finished first or second. Nigel Mansell finished first, second, or third. So this car was hero or zero. And it's a beautiful car. It would have performed well if they had figured out their problems with their semi-automatic gearboxes. I believe there was an electrical draw that they figured out about 7 races into the season, and once they had that, the reliability severely improved. So, anyways, good looking model. I'm going to go ahead and compare this one to the late season version of the 640, so you can see the differences in the two models. I can already, just looking at this quickly, there are definitely some improvements going on in this car. And so let's go ahead and talk about each of those. So here I have the later season, truly what is the 640. I've shown this in another video comparing it against the 112 scale. So I'm going to spend more time on the early season version, but just a reminder, the 640, the biggest distinguishing difference is this upper cowling here, or air intake. Anyway, so I'm gonna highlight the differences between this version, which is the early season version, and the late season version, and we'll go through each of those different differences in detail. So first off, and most obvious, is this is a driver variant. As I've said before, I'm biased towards having drivers in the cars. I think in F1 particularly, the driver is part of the popularity or the interest in a car. That they have personalities, and they certainly did in the 80s and 90s, more so than they probably did in the 2000s and stuff like that when it was very corporate. But so I like having the driver variant. I've spoken about the helmets and stuff. I think GP Replicas does a great version or a great job on this variation of the driver figure. I think the helmet looks pretty good. I was very disappointed with the shape of the Schumacher helmets in my previous videos. However, I think this one is fantastic. It does have a clear lens, which is appropriate. That is the only real flaws, and they have this painted driver that's kind of, uh, you know, very pale and has little black beady eyes. So I don't love that, but it is kind of the way it is, the way it was. But the overall shape of this helmet is fantastic. The cockpit area looks great. They use this darker tan seat. It's darker than even the 1/12 one, which I thought was an improvement over the 1/18 early variation, which uses a lighter colored cockpit seat, which I don't find to be very accurate at all. So, even from the 1/12, which is an improvement over the 1/18, I find this dark tan flocked seat to even be more realistic. The cockpit looks great. Steering wheel, as always, is amazing. They've also added these details here with the photo etch seat belts that you commonly see done in black, which is accurate for the race. And then they have the little electrical radio cord in there, and then the white one, which I don't know, was water maybe. They're doing that back then. I don't recall, but um, anyways, really like the detail level of the cockpit area. Um, I think that's just this is outstanding, and I'm super excited. I was a huge Mansell fan as a kid. A big Ferrari fan growing up. Still am a Ferrari fan. So this to me is fantastic. Next area of interest to me or differences is on the decaling is here on the front wing you have this kind of gold strip which appears on the 1/12 scale as well, but not on the original 1/18 variation. I find this is depends on the race. This gold strip of carbon fiber appeared sometimes down here, sometimes on the second tier of the front wing. It just depended on the race, and frankly, at this race in Brazil, I'm not sure that this is on it. I'm having a hard time finding a photo that would validate that, but it does look great. As always, these carbon fiber decals are amazing from GP Replicas. Another thing that's different between this one and the later releases that this is done in a glossy carbon fiber. I think in a previous video I mentioned that on the 1/18th it's a matte, and the 1/12 and this one that's carbon is glossy. The matte's probably more accurate, to be honest, but it does look super nice here. And it's this nice like kind of dot pattern, whereas you have the striations on the wing, so it's a nice differentiation between the different types of carbon fiber patterning. So something they did improve on this model versus the previous version of the 640 or late season version of the 640 is the rivet details. They've included a lot more of these smaller rivets that show up on the 1/12 scale, and I mentioned that in the previous video, but are now appearing also on this 1/18 scale. I think it's amazing that they would add these extra little rivets around this radiator exit down here. If you look at the rear wing here, there's a rivet there on this tie back as well as down here. Then on the support beam, you have some more rivets. Across the top member of the rear wing, you have four little rivets there as well. I think that's super detailed. It's amazing looking. You also get the rivets along the front of the windscreen there as well. That said, if I was being accurate, it looks like these are actually on the race car. Should have been done in black. They would not show up as nicely on this model if they were in black instead of the, just metal aluminum that they are. However, it would be more accurate. And I think actually on the Exodo 641 um, variation released many, many years ago, they have some photo etch parts for the bigger ones, and they correctly have little black dots for the smaller rivets. So shows well, kind of like the glossy carbon fiber. Um, Probably not totally correct, but does look awesome, and it's definitely a detail increase over the uh, original 640 release from GP Replicas. Looking at the rear section of the car, the AGIP here is done in white, which is race accurate, whereas on the late season one, it's done in yellow. Again, the late season one I mentioned in other videos. I don't think it's it's not race specific. It's more of a just kind of a show car. So I don't think the yellow is actually ever raced in 1989. It was used on the 641 in 1990. So, also looking at this rear end, the early release, the gearbox is done in black. This one's painted silver, which is nice. Has this metal photo etched rear lifter piece as well, which I think is done really nicely. And if you can see in the middle of the gearbox, it's got a photo etched part that says Ferrari on it, which I think is an awesome detail for this size model. So kudos to them for spending some time upgrading. You get the little radiator piece in the below the wing that's photo etched as well. Overall, great job and an improvement over the original version. Next, I want to talk about the wheels. Here you get the speed line is done in red versus white. Again, that's more race specific, and they did use both over the course of an '89 season. So I like that this one is accurate. This one, as I mentioned on my 112 scale video, has the paint is done in kind of the stencil paint job, which is actually accurate to the race and different from the original release, which was just the solid A and R and that kind of stuff. They at least tried to make the stenciling done on this one. A big improvement is the wheel size. So I had mentioned in the other video with the 112 scale that the original release 118th here, it's like a go-kart wheel or something weird. It looks like one of the Lotuses from the late 70s size tire. This looks way more accurate and correct, and so I appreciate that GP Replicas made the attempt to correct the wheel size from the first variation to this one. However, they made what I feel like is a mistake on the rear wheel, the same as they did on the 112. It's got this edging or lip here that just doesn't make sense. On the original release, it's a rounded out edge. It's a little more accurate to the way the real tire was. However, they kind of carried this mold over from the 112. So you're getting benefits of rivets and things like that off the 112 scale that they carried over. However, then you get the drawback, which is this tire. All right, so that's kind of a highlight of the difference between these two cars. This might be my new favorite Ferrari F1 car in my collection. I've always loved the shape. I've loved the driver. I think the driver in this car looks fantastic. Um, this hybrid, as much as I like the later shape of this 640, the 639 kind of hybrid style between the 87 and the 89 cars, I think is just it's a great looking car, and I'm super excited. The added details, I'm super happy that GP Replicas took the time to improve their first version. It's still not 100% correct, but from a display point of view, I think it's amazing. So, anyways, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe, hit like, add comments. I love to respond to those and chat with fellow collectors. So again, thanks for watching the video, and we'll have some more soon.